All right, everybody, welcome back. Hope you had a great lunch. Our upcoming speaker is Cryptastic Hacker, who is a DIY self-taught engineer who is passionate about empowering people with disabilities to have design decisions on their medical devices and treatments that affect our lives. He has a hackaday.io page and a YouTube page where he uploads repair videos and open source projects. His website is cripsrise.neocities.org. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back from lunch. Hope you're all well fed. I am Cryptastic Hacker. I'm going to be here talking about honeybees and bee venom and a whole bunch of other stuff. First, I just want to give a shout out to all the people that worked so hard to put this event together. Folks at OSHWA, this has been amazing. And the National Science Foundation, which grant supports this actually happening. OSHWA also provides travel expenses for people to come to this thing. I live 10 minutes away, so I'm not getting to do some fancy traveling, but that's actually one of the reasons I get to be here, which is really great. I apologize in advance for San Francisco having AI billboards everywhere. We used to have other billboards. You're in the historic Mission District. This is the place I've called home for over 10 years. Check out Clarion Alley. Check out the Mission Cultural Center. It's a great neighborhood. So today we're going to be talking about bee venom therapy. And this is using honeybees to treat health ailments, as well as I'm going to be sharing some open source bee cage climate control designs that I've done. And that's me, Cryptastic Hacker. You can find me online with that name. So first of all, we've got a disclaimer here. Disclaimer. I'm not a doctor or a medical professional. I am what's called a layperson. That term has never been particularly flattering to me, but that's what it is. Please do your own research. Please explore the info out there. I'm just one guy on a stage. Use your brain. I like to say that's the squishy thing between the ears. Question stuff. And I'm just sharing a treatment that has been helping me. So I'm just speaking from my experience. There are inherent risks using bee venom therapy, just like all treatments. Especially if you don't follow the dosage or you're allergic. Please consult your doctor or trusted health practitioner before trying this treatment. And please do not start treatment alone. And of course, if something is wrong, call Ann Phuong. If you're local, you know what that's about. What is apitherapy? How do you even say it? Apitherapy? Apitherapy? Apitherapy comes from the Latin apis, meaning bee. It's the use of honeybee products to treat human health conditions and provide health benefits. A lot of people are familiar with various things that bees create and harvest. Sore throats, if you've ever had honey for a sore throat, that's a form of apitherapy. If you've had bee pollen and the nutrition that comes in bee pollen, and if you used propolis, which is the cleaning agent that bees create to clean their hives, or if you've used royal jelly before, which is what the queen is fed. It's the very pure honey that the queen is fed. People use that for skin health and stuff like that. This talk is not about any of that. This talk is about bee venom therapy. So bee venom therapy is concerned with the venom sac and the ingredients that are inside the venom that a bee has. And bee venom is usually done by a sting or an injection. Personally, I use the stingers myself. This is a breakdown of the stingers. We're all probably, if we've ever been stung by a bee, familiar with the barbed lancers that a bee sting not so pleasantly leaves behind. And what can BVT, or bee venom therapy, help with? So this is a list of some of the ingredients in bee venom from one of the medical studies I'll be sharing later. Bee venom's composed primarily of water, peptides, and enzymes. The primary ingredient that we're mostly concerned with is melittin, which exhibits anti-inflammatory and antiviral properties. This is from one of the medical studies of some of the things that people use bee venom for. And rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, carpal tunnel, you can imagine those would be useful with a strong anti-inflammatory. Also Lyme disease, fibromyalgia, and cancer, certain forms of cancer because of its antiviral properties. But wait, stop. How can Big Pharma make money off this? Not really easily. You can't really like sell honeybees as a treatment so easily. And so there is sort of some effort by some folks to discredit it. Here's an article in Wikipedia, for example, that says that there's no scientific or clinical evidence for the efficacy or safety of apitherapy treatments. Well, that's the end of my talk, folks. Sorry, no, just kidding. So actually, there is both clinical evidence for the efficacy and safety of apitherapy treatments. And in fact, here's a medical study on melatonin, the active component, and its uses against Borrelia, and actually how it's been more effective than doxycycline for treating it, which is the most popular medication for Lyme disease treatment. Here's a study that was done on the treatment of cancer with melatonin. Here's a more recent study on various applications, and here's one from Oxford Medical Journal on Lyme disease treatment as well. These articles are overwhelmingly positive about the effects. Melatonin could have significant effects on all Borrelia, which is the main bacteria in Lyme disease. And evidence strongly suggests there's potential to be a cancer treatment. Bee venom showed immediate and profound inhibitory effects. That's from the Oxford Journal article. There's also been a book studied on biotherapy, or book published on biotherapy. So various medical journals. This is not fringe science. It's like well documented and it's used in other countries. It's been around for a long time. Here's a bunch of medical studies. I've also got printouts of all of these medical studies on the back table and would love to share those, as well as have talk with people after the talk. So my story, this is me in my neighborhood. And so I became chronically ill in my early 20s. I lost my job, my family, my friends due to illness. I could not maintain my studies. I tried everything possible in Western medicine that I could find. I went to countless doctors, tried all sorts of Western medicine treatments, physical therapy, and some surgeries. In 2016, I was dying. I was experiencing severe muscle atrophy. I could not brush my teeth. I certainly couldn't walk, and I could not use a computer. I had a home care provider that typed emails for me. I spent thousands of dollars on treatments until I had almost nothing left. And here's another picture of me hacking stuff. So I was terrified to try bee venom therapy. Who in their right mind is going to be like, yeah, let me just sting myself with bees. That's the way to go. So I tried everything else first, but I was out of options. And the cost for treatment was very reasonable. It's about $50 a month instead of $1,000 or more per month. I didn't think it would help. It sounded crazy. It was just one more thing to try in desperation. And the hardest part was hurting the bees. Bees don't live after you sting. It did help to know that a queen bee lays 2,000 eggs per day. A hive has anywhere from 20,000 to 80,000 bees. And by doing these treatments, hives are actually expanded. The overall population of bees expands as patients support beekeepers. And my journey, just for folks to know, has been much longer than most. And my improvement has not meant complete eradication of my disease, but mostly quality of life improvements. For example, being here today, which I could not do without this treatment. Learning about bee venom therapy. So there's an article published by the BBC, and this is where I learned how to do some of my treatment with a protocol that Ellie Lobel developed. Ellie Lobel has a doctorate in nuclear physics. She's a very smart woman. And her life was saved by being attacked by bees. And that's how she got very fascinated with this. She was in late stage organ failure with Lyme disease. She published this book, literally wrote the book on bee venom therapy for Lyme disease. And I learned about this stuff when I went to a chronic pain support group. And I shared, that I was out of options and I was out of money. And someone took pity on me and decided to teach me this stuff, which is part of the reason I'm here today sharing. I was given a testing with a group of people. I did not do this alone. I did not do this without supervision. And I've been regularly doing BVT treatments since 2017. So I've got a number of years now to share that experience and have experienced massive quality of life improvements. Tools of the trade. I've got a bunch of these on the back table over there. So we've got the observation cage, which is delightfully known as the Biza hut. This can be purchased on Etsy and other places. We've got the tweezers here that are most commonly used, cross-lock curved fiber grip, medium point tweezers for anyone wanting specifics. Local honey, which is important for the bees to have the highest quality honey possible. Bottle caps to put the honey in because it's BPA lined. Shout out to Aloe Drinks. I miss them. They're having a hard time right now. Really delicious drinks. Cotton balls. These are to squirt with water so the bees can drink water from that. Having a steam cleaner is actually really recommended by me because it helps clean the cages each week. An EpiPen, which is really important if you do have an allergic reaction to a bee sting. And of course, the bees themselves, which can be ordered by mail or can be procured from local beekeepers. So the original setup that most people have looks something like this inside the Biza hut cage. Bees like the toilet paper roll for dark and for crawling around, but it's difficult to catch them for treatments. So sometimes people will put the bee cage in the fridge. The bees will kind of enter an early state hibernation and then they're not moving quite as quickly. When you do this a long time, you get really good at catching live bees though. Food caps are exposed, so bees can drown in the honey that you give them, or they can poop in their honey. It's really not ideal. And there's a folded paper in the bottom of the cage that keeps things cleaner, but you have to change it out each week, and it gets kind of annoying. So I decided to do some things to improve this. And this is the journey to the bee comfy. So first thing I did was make this very crude heater, which I think I sold like 5 of these, but I went to all the work to make this little instructional video or instructional card. And the first goal was to keep the bees warmer. So bees are really sensitive to temperature. They like a temperature range between 93 and 97 degrees. Normally keeping these in your closet. There's a lot of different climate conditions depending on where you live. And so this was a really simple heater. It uses copper foil, 2 resistor blocks, uses Ohm's law with a 5-volt power source to generate some heat. And it's very crude, but it worked in the middle slot here, as you can see, and it worked for years. The bees would huddle up, as you can see there. They really enjoyed the heat. And one of the downsides, though, was they have to crawl up to the top. And usually the bees that we use for this are a little bit older. And so sometimes they couldn't crawl the best. So I wanted to get a heater that was lower where the heat could rise and fill the cage off, and so be a little more efficient that way too. But the next invention that I came up with was the honey hut. And the honey hut is a way to keep the bees from falling into their food or pooing in their food or whatever. And it's a little protective hut over everything. It has a little sliding tray there for the honey and for the cotton balls. And that's easy to grab with tweezers. And then there's 2 storage sections. And I spent too much time on this logo. But there it is. The original's on display in the back if you're an art person. Next thing I worked on was honeycomb covers. So the covers that come with this cage were falling apart after a number of years, which led to escape bees. Yes, that's a pun, everyone. I used some hot glue, like in a jam, but it wasn't ideal. So I wanted something redesigned using PETG, which is a common 3D printed filament, and is much more robust against temperature. So using the steam cleaner, something that wouldn't damage the plastic. And I settled on this hex template. But one thing I had to do was actually measure and figure out the diameter of a bee to design something that would work. It's kind of fascinating, nature across, all these different species. Bee is roughly the same size. And so there it is, and there it is installed. And I used M3 countersunk wood screws are a favorite of mine for 3D printed designs. And it looks a lot better, and it's actually lasted for years. This picture is quite old. You can see there's also a USB adapter that I've upgraded this to. All right, so now to the Bee Comfy 1.0. This is where things get a lot fancier. And I wanted to make a proper climate control system. So something that had ventilation control, that had a much more improved heating system that I could actually adjust the temperature on. Wanted to have improved ventilation using 5015 fans. These are really common 5-volt fans. To do all this, of course, I need a microcontroller. And of course, I can incorporate custom modes for that as well. And so I designed PCBs by trade, so all of this stuff was custom designed by me. And the resistor heater was actually purchased online, but it's actually, you'll see it in a second, it's quite simple. And then I opted to use a Dallas DS18B20, which is a really common temperature probe. And so here's the Arduino Nano you can see with a breakout board. This is an FPC10. This is an old design, so obviously newer microcontrollers would be nice to upgrade to. These are all the 3D printed cases. This is the UI control that I designed. It uses an SSD 1306 and a rotary encoder. It has hardware and software debouncing. Anybody out there designing UI systems? Hardware and software debouncing. And so here's the UI interface with the temperature probe, as you can see, and the heating element there, which is, it's really just like a PCB connecting large traces, and the resistance between the two join points are what forms, using Ohm's law, you can just calculate how heat is produced. But the temperature probe is going to measure the temperature and basically turn the heater off and on using a PWM pulse to generate the set temperature. So there's lots and lots of 3D printing to do this, of course. And one of the things I'm most proud of is the design of the temperature probe and heating element was actually designed to incorporate heaters for both sides of the observation cage. So the same heater can actually heat up 2 different hives at the same time. I incorporated all these like sleep modes, over temperature protection, all sorts of protection modes and stuff, which is kind of fancy. And the bees, they do love it. Here's the slotted design, as you can see there, over the temperature probe, and it separates between the 2 hives in the cage. And this is all on display in the back. And here's the bees, and they're always on that heater. They just love it. And it's beautiful to see how they adjust their body temperature by huddling together and moving around in different ways. So current and future upgrades that I'd like to do. I've got this design for improving the bee feeders a little bit, and I've done some of these already. I've used a polypropylene floor liner, so I'm not having to put paper in the bottom there all the time. A removable hut for easy cleaning, adding proper PWM fans, and upgrading to a more modern microcontroller, something like the ESP32C3 or Super Mini, which are a little older by today's standards, but cheap, easy to source, and easy to program. So this is the upgraded, that was one of the upgraded feeders. This is the upgraded hut, which is in 2 pieces and slots. This is also on display in the back. And now you can pull it out really easily if you want to clean it. And there's everything all set up in the cage. And as you can see, the bees just love it. And they love, it's like a little gymnasium for them, kind of crawling all around up there. So just giving a little bit of an overview. By the way, these are some mason jar covers for local beekeepers to basically transport the bees. It actually kind of converts it to work in the rectangular bee containers that I use for the cage. So as an overview, BVT, bee venom therapy, is an effective alternative treatment for many health conditions, has documented, proven scientific studies of its effectiveness. The treatment carries risk, especially for those who are allergic. While it's not for everyone, it can be life-changing for those without options or limited money. And bees can be treated with greater love and care and have their lives prolonged by cool, hacky cage upgrades. Here's another thing that's on display. I don't have time to talk about it, but it's another way to basically keep the bees warm when they're in transit or if I'm out of space in the different observation cages that I have. So thank you everyone for watching. Here's some art that I made for local beekeeper, and you can reach me on these places. I have no funding for any of this at all, so there's a donation jar in the back if you want to drop something in there for me. Thank you so much.